It might be that Wheels evolved to start using M dashes or something.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, you know what I mean? It's like, it's
Hello and welcome to episode 321 of the Rockstar CMO effing Marketing Podcast, a proud member of the Marketing Podcast Network. It's Sunday, the 10th of May. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm not a rockstar, but I am a full-time B2B CMO, and I hope you are well and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. Firstly, apologies for being a bit late this week. Something came up yesterday. I'm doing something a little bit different this week with my regular studio bandmates. Kathy and Jeff are both away, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to do one of my occasional solos. And I'm just sharing 5 effing things that caught my eye this week before I join Robert Rose in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, for a chat about whether it matters if content is AI generated. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back. After this word.
We'll be right back.
After this word. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Ian Truscott. You may know me as the host of the Rockstar CMO effing Marketing Podcast, but I'm here to share that we're kicking off the inaugural MPN Podcast Awards, which will be hosted by Gordon Glenister, podcaster, author, and the Don of influencer marketing. What say you, Gordon?
The Marketing Podcast Network is a community of marketers who podcast. And we thought it was high time to recognise the podcasts that we love, marketing podcasts. But these awards aren't just about the shows on our network. The MPN Awards are open to all marketing podcasts. And this is our chance to shine a light on the voices right across the entire marketing podcast community. So don't delay. Enter the MPN Awards.
You heard Gordon. Let us know your favourite marketing podcast and enter at mpn-awards.com or follow the Marketing Podcast Network on LinkedIn for all of our updates.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Right, so time for something different. Well, a bit different this week. 5 effing things that caught my eye this week. The first is email has become earned, not owned, which is inspired by something from Anne Handley, who is, of course, the queen of business writing, author of Everybody Writes, and recently the champion of the M-Dash. If you haven't subscribed to her newsletter, you should. It's called Total Anarchy. Easily findable on the Googles, and of course, I'll include a link to it in the show notes. Her most recent issue was called Email is Dead, Long Live Email. In it, she talks about how in the dawn of time, as outlined by Seth Godin in his book, Permission Marketing, that's all you needed, permission. Therefore, email is, of course, considered an owned channel. Your email subscription list and the engagement on this channel were considered the daddy, worth more than all of your followers' likes and vanity metrics that were delivered on someone else's platform. And as Anne puts it, standing in the center of the marketing square, shaking a tin cup at the fickle algo gods for a few puny shillings of attention. However, these algo gods are now coming for our inboxes, with our AI now filtering what gets priority. And now the treasured goal of email, which used to be deliverability, is not the target anymore. Getting into the inbox is just the start. An email no longer just needs permission. It has to earn its way to be read and engaged with. Being delivered is all very well, but it needs to be selected. Personally, I'm not sure if that's a new thing, whether the AI filtering just mechanizes what we all do, which is, with so much crying for our attention, our inboxes, from outright spam to unsolicited sellers and the newsletters we all signed up for with good intentions, it has been a fight for attention in our inboxes for years. Yes, a fight that was fought with a good hook in a subject line, but now, as Anne points out, the from line is now more important than the subject line. Have we, as the sender, earn sufficient credibility for our email to be open. There's been countless claims that email is dead, but if you listen to folks like Joe Polizzi and my chum Robert Rose, who'll be joining me in the bar in a bit, the guys who defined content marketing 15 years ago, they still maintain that everything else is rented land. You often see in follow-up cold outreach emails words like, "Are you getting my emails?" Yes, I am getting your emails. I'm just not getting the need. Your deliverability is great, but your credibility and your content are not. Which brings me to the point we often reach in content marketing. We shouldn't start with the channel. We have a habit of deciding that we're going to start an email campaign, a newsletter, or a tick-face strategy, and then fill it with content. We need to first think about what we want to say, who to, and how it will earn its way to our audience's attention through being relevant and useful. So this isn't necessarily about the algo and the AI controlling the inbox. This is about somebody seeking you out in their inbox. Which brings me to my second effing thing this week, which is building a campfire. If you read my Tuesday 2 Cents newsletter on LinkedIn, then you'll have seen this phrase already as I nicked it from Joe Polizzi's newsletter, which, as this is my second reference to someone else's newsletter, possibly underlines that this whole email thing is not dead. His newsletter discusses the importance of our networks and communities, specifically in this age of synthesized content and engagement, but more generally in times of uncertainty. And it seems recognizing this, everyone is jumping on this bandwagon. And this often fails, as Joe puts it, because they built the campfire before anyone had a reason to sit down in front of it. I love the image this conjured up in my head. It really resonated. While Joe was talking about his experience with content creators and communities of practice, I think we can apply this metaphor to whatever we're building, whether it's a business, product, service, or indeed a community. It's the campfire we're building, the focus of our tribe, to coin Seth Godin's term, and we need to give people a reason to sit around it. And there are two reasons why they would. The first is utility. In the case of a campfire, the utility is warmth. So it's important for us to be clear about what and who our campfire is for, which seems really obvious until you hang out on a lot of B2B websites like I do. And while you'll learn that its flippers and flappers are industry-leading, data-led and AI-powered, what is it actually for? The second reason is conversation. Maybe they don't need warmth right now, but they sit down to learn or to be entertained. For your business, products or service, the purpose of the campfire is to engage the 95% of target buyers who are not in market and therefore not here for the utility yet. The conversation is what is keeping them warm, to use the sales parlance. Anyway, I got into this a little more in my article that I post on LinkedIn, but I really like this framing of building a campfire and this thoughts about what's it for, why are you doing it? And it isn't just to build the campfire, it's the utility and the conversation that goes around it. So we'll move on to my third effing thing this week, which takes me into a slightly different direction, as I've had a couple of conversations this week about AI disruption of the software industry at both ends of the scale. So the general consensus is that AI, specifically vibe coding, is going to kill SaaS. I've argued against this as a broad statement, but there is a strong argument that simple applications that are a workflow on top of a database are particularly vulnerable to a switched-on tech-savvy marketing or sales team. My argument against is a familiar one. We've had the build versus buy debate for decades. And while, yes, I agree, this democratizes coding, the underlying argument remains that software is not free beer. It's a puppy that needs to be maintained. And that's what we've been arguing about, isn't it, for the last 2 decades? It may be that you're able to build something, but buying something actually gives you all of that maintenance, it gives you all the security, all the boring adulty stuff around an application and maintains it for you. And it's especially true if you make some bad assumptions at the beginning with the design or the architecture. So if you're vibing something and you're not used to doing data architecture, you may start off with an idea of a simple application, but as it grows, you realize that data structure or whatever it is that you've created isn't going to fit. Now, I'm not saying this isn't way easier to fix right now. You just vibe code your way out of that or low code your way out of that. And I'm not going to go down this particular rabbit hole, but I had 2 interesting conversations at both ends of the software scale about where this disruption sits. I was chatting with a CTO whose company used a simple, or in his phrase, shitty, as he put it, time tracking system. And he knew he could rip it out and replace it with something he could create himself, possibly over the weekend. but it wasn't on his list of priorities. Just because he could, why would he? To him, it was a distraction. Probably as he knew more than most that building is just the tip of the iceberg. And that was not worth the few bucks he was paying in per user licenses for this fairly ordinary piece of software. At the other end of the scale, I had a couple of conversations this week about the future of the big guns like SAP or Salesforce. People are building their own AI agents, interfaces, and no-code applications on top of these systems, especially as they've embraced AI interoperability and also sometimes composability by offering services. So the AI interoperability they've got is through something called MCP. These systems are now becoming just data sources, decapitated, if you like, if you were to use the language of headless. I'm hearing that even at the rarefied era of multi-million, multi-year enterprise deals, disruption from AI is being felt. It's the value of your enterprise applications being stripped down to a mere data store. But even if that isn't happening today, would you renew a multi-year deal with all this uncertainty floating around? We really don't know where this AI thing is taking us. So I think that's really interesting that, when we talk about the disruption of software, and the relevance for us as marketers is, we need to make decisions about our marketing technology infrastructure. And I think it's really interesting that at both ends, I had these very different conversations about where to go. And I think we're all still figuring this out, right? It's a bit like the Wild West. And it's ever so easy for us to start to build something, then realize partway into it, oh my God, this is bigger and harder than I thought it was going to be. But similarly, it seems that committing to the old way of working and with these multi-year deals, particularly in SaaS solutions, that's not going to be the future either. And we could be left high and dry with a legacy system that we need to build something on top of. So that was my third effing thing. My fourth effing thing this week, sticking with AI, of course, you got to stick with AI, haven't you? It's 2026, is getting the creative balance right with AI. And this is inspired by a LinkedIn post by an industry chum, Adrian Blom, who also pulled at the same thread that Robert pulled at on this show when he was talking about keeping your pointy bits, if you remember that we need to be careful and not allow AI to polish out the interesting or possibly human bits in our creativity, in our writing, even in our business writing, even our websites. I think we've passed the argument that either something is AI content or it's not, as we're all letting the robot gods, what am I talking about, gods? Letting the robots guide our hand in some way, from Grammarly, which I'm constantly fighting with, to be honest with you, to full-blown, fully synthesized content. We just get Claude to create something, we cut and paste it straight into our websites. With bits of research and ideation in between. Everybody's got their own process, right? And we probably frown at the guys that are just using AI to create the slot. But on the other hand, I think that we're all influenced or using these robots for something within our creativity and with our writing. Anyway, in this post, which I thought was quite interesting, he shared a quadrant which will be hard to describe using only audio. I don't know why I've set myself up for this, but if you can imagine two axes, the up and down axis is the level of polish, and the left to right axis is the quality and distinctiveness of the idea. The content that folks are describing as AI slop, I would suggest, would sit in the top left. So it's very polished, so it's high up the polish scale, but the ideas are thin or they're generic or, they're mediocre. They're not particularly good. Now, normally the goal with a quadrant is to be in the top right. But in this quadrant, the ideas are good, but the execution is so polished by AI that it loses its soul and its pointy bits, as Robert would say. The just right is somewhere at the bottom of that top right quadrant. It's a great idea. It's polished and well researched. So the great idea has come from the human. There's a bit of polish and a bit of research that's come from AI. And obviously that's helped scale getting this thing done, because clearly that's where we can scale when we're doing our creative. It's through the research that AI can offer us. But it's not so much that it's lost its humanness, its soul, that bit that makes it yours, right? In your language and how you are. So I thought that was an interesting model, and perhaps describing a quadrant on an audio-only podcast was not the best vehicle to make that point. But I think this is where we're at, right? We're trying to balance leveraging the power and efficiency of these tools while still producing something worth somebody else engaging with, right? Well, that's until obviously we're writing for the robots and the robots are writing for themselves. But let's imagine that for now, especially if we go back to point number one, where we're talking about email, why am I going to bother opening a generic email that's clearly written by AI? The nice thing, if you do read Anne Handley, it's a great example of somebody's voice really coming through. Some of the way she talks, sometimes she apparently got in trouble for saying bugger in one of her emails. There's a little bit of informal language, these interesting metaphors that she uses that I think makes her writing stand out. And I think those are the sorts of things that we need to embrace. So that was number 4. If I come to my 5th and final thing, it's actually a little bit about me, to be honest, as I became a mentor at the Institute of Directors some months ago. And I've been working with some really interesting professionals, either growing their business or making the transition from corporate to doing their own thing. This has been really rewarding, and I'd love to do more of it. And I'm not sure if I would call it coaching or mentoring. It's more of a sort of one-to-one advisory. And of course, if you're interested in having a chat about doing it, then I'd love to hear from you. But what I've learned through this process as a B2B marketer and as a person who's just been around the B2B block for quite a lot, when you leave corporate and want to do your own thing, you are now a B2B service provider, which I think, most people underestimate. We think of ourselves as the profession that we're in. For example, I'm a marketer. And so we just think about the work. We think about the value we add when we're in our full-time job, not the business, not the way that we position ourselves in the commercial world. And I've found that, my experience, not just doing my own thing, but taking B2B products to market has been very applicable to chatting with these folks. It's all those standard things. If you're thinking about, positioning yourself as a service, as you think about your ICP, you think about your personas, you think about the offerings that you provide, you think about the problem that you solve, and how do you express that? It's all the same sorts of things that we would do if we're building a B2B content marketing campaign. And it's just about a complete individual. And I found the thing that's really rewarding is it helps to clarify for these people what it is they do. Where's their niche? Who are they for? Rather than just being really generic. And this really, really, some really, really interesting conversations I've been having on that. And then to extend this analogy a little bit, I was flicking through LinkedIn early on, and I saw some job seeking advice, which really read like a B2B marketing and sales campaign. It was about, if you're looking for work, if you're looking for a job. So this isn't people like me who become freelancers or consultants or fractionals or whatever. This is people actually looking for jobs. You identify the ideal company, the stakeholders, you connect with them, you think about what you're putting out in the world that's going to be relevant to them. There was even a suggestion that you do a little video of yourself talking about your work. So it's a whole campaign that people are now being encouraged to run. So which suggests to me this idea of we're all B2B service providers isn't just for people like me who are free of their master's lance, which is where freelancer comes from, but for people who want to have corporate roles as well. We need to think about ourselves as B2B service providers when we're in the job market. So those are my 5 effing things for this week. Normal service rule resume next week as Jeff will be back. But I hope you like those 5. And of course, I'll include links to all of the things in the show notes. Right, that's quite enough of me. But I did notice that I didn't do my normal summary of the 5 effing things like I do with my guests. So if you're interested, what I talked about there was email moving from earned to owned, building a campfire, AI is disrupting both ends of the software scale, getting the right creative balance with AI, and that we're all B2B service providers now. So, like I say, enough of me. So now it's time to wind down and join Robert Rose, Chief Troublemaker at Seventh Bear, in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, as I pick his brains over one of his classic cocktails.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the bar.
Thank you very much, mate. And how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I am just on the cusp of headed out to Utah for my yearly sort of mastermind that I do every single year. So I'm getting ready for that. But other than that, it's been a good week.
Yeah. We talked a lot before I pressed record, which is we're going to run out of time on the recording. But I forgot to ask you about that because I heard you were going. It sounds fantastic.
It is. Well, it's I've done it for 15 years now, so it's become part of my sort of ritual, I guess. Every single year to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've missed a few years because of various things, by having to attend funerals or some business thing that I couldn't get out of or whatever. But for the most part, I've gone every year, and it's something I hate to miss because it's. I call it brain yoga because it's literally 4 days of not, non-interruptive, non-email, no cell phones, it's just, a bunch of people thinking about big things in the middle of the mountains and having good food and wine and all that. So it's really
so
great.
you literally unplug for 4 days.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say it's pure like that, but of course, life gets in the way. And so there are, you have breaks, let's call them, like 4-hour breaks in the afternoon. And, do you go back and look through your email? Yeah, you do. I mean, that's sort of inescapable, but for the most part, yes, it is unplugged.
Nice. Splendid. And that sounds like, so there'll be some lovely drinking and eating while you're there.
Yes, there will be. And we have an exorbitantly complex cocktail for tonight. So what we're going to have is, are you a fan? Do you like rhubarb? Do you like the taste of rhubarb?
Yes,
it's a very acquired taste, I know, but
it's also a very British thing, I think. Rhubarb.
It's a very British thing. Yeah, it's a very British thing. My mom used to have us have rhubarb pie and rhubarb this and rhubarb. She loved rhubarb, and so this is a rhubarb, what they call a rhubarb and rose gin fizz.
Wow.
And so, it's like, it's complicated. Like you're going to have to go out to the store and get some stuff. So it starts with a good gin, whatever your favorite gin is for cocktails. So, start with that. Then we have a half ounce of lemon juice, a half ounce of lime juice, then a couple of ounces of rhubarb syrup, which I found that was easier to get than I thought. So it's there. You can just buy it. And then 1 ounce of heavy cream. And then if you have it, this is not a must, but the rose water, like if you've got some rose water, it adds a nice little flavor to it. And then an egg white. You need an egg white to go in here. And so this is where you're going to get the sort of frothy sort of thing. So you combine all those ingredients with no ice and no soda water yet in a cocktail shaker. And then you're going to shake all that vigorously for like 30 seconds. That gets the egg white all frothy, gets everything all mixed up together. Then you add the ice to the shaker and then shake another 30 seconds to do your typical sort of cocktail thing. Then strain that into a chilled glass and then top it up with soda or sparkling water if you prefer. And then basically that gets you your rhubarb gin fizz. And you can put it and let it sit. If you let it sit for a little bit, it'll sort of settle into a sort of a milkshake almost looking thing. But then you can also obviously drink it right away.
Nice.
It's a beautiful cream. It's very creamy, very lovely. Yeah. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely drink.
You can actually get rhubarb gin, I think, that's already got the rhubarb syrup in it. Presumably that's how they make it. I don't know. But so you can get these different pink gins, and I believe one of them has got rhubarb in it. My sister bought me a selection once. So it's from dim memory of, one evening where we tried loads of them.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Oh, it's rhubarb. Splendid. So while we're sipping these, I've got a question for you, mate. It's a deep philosophical question that of the ages, and that is, does it matter if content is AI generated? So I think that we've been talking about this. You've been talking about this quite a lot on your podcast, and I was listening to a BBC podcast where which was called "Everything Is Fake and Nobody Cares," and they had an interview with a lady called Anne
That's
McKeely.
great. That's a great title. I love that. I love that.
And she's the head of product in Inception Point AI, and they're a company that churns out thousands of AI generated podcasts. And I had to listen to one of them, and it's like, yeah, okay. But
is that a nice way to say that it's shit, basically?
it was like oral wallpaper, really. I happened to listen to a gardening one, and the guy was plausibly, he was middle class British bloke that described how he wore tweed, and they made it very clear that it was AI generated, but apparently it attracts an audience. There are people listening to this stuff, and they're ad supported, and this is a company that's making money. And I just use that as one example. And I know that you and I have chatted about this a bit, and you've got a theory about whether people should care whether something is AI generated. So I thought we'd explore that. What do you think?
Yes. I mean, I would love to talk about that. I mean, it's, yes, I have lots of thoughts. Where would you like to take it, basically?
Well, do you think it matters if content is AI generated? Let's start with the basics, because I think that the robot is guiding all of our hands, right? And so I think that it isn't binary anymore, right? Whether
Right.
AI was involved or not. So that kind of muddies the water slightly. But
Yes.
is it if people are engaging, does it matter?
So ultimately, no. And let me tell you why I put the adverb on that. And so it's the reason I say ultimately no is because right now it does, but it's because we're right now in a season where so there's this saying that goes around that basically says, today is the dumbest AI you're ever going to use, right? And and what the next sentence should be, but never is today is the dumbest version of us that also exists.
Yeah.
Right. Because we get smarter too. And so as we can observe, we over the last 3 years have become, all of us in varying degree, experts at spotting what the telltale signs of bad writing from AI are, right? So everybody has every AI agent, every human, we all have tells in our writing. And and what happens is that as you become a better writer, over time those tells disappear, or you consciously make them disappear, right? And your writing gets better, and ultimately it doesn't matter what it is, whether you're creating photography or painting or music or whatever. As you become more skilled, you become you're it's sort of inherent, right? You get better at it. Hopefully you get better at it, right? And so what we can see is that we can also see that AI writing, just to use that one as an example, because we could talk about music and video and all the rest of it, but just for writing, we can observe that AI writing started awful and got better and has gotten progressively better. So it is true that today is the dumbest AI version, or the least skilled writer that you're going to see, but tomorrow it will be better, and the next day it'll be better after that, etc. So it'll start to avoid M dashes when we tell it. It'll start to avoid the overuse of things like it's not this, it's that. All of those sort of telltale signs but by the way, that we humans now recognize as bad writing. But remember, it's learning from our previous writing. So it didn't make that up. It basically found that was a pattern that was worth repeating because that's what humans did. So we have to remember that the AI is teaching us how to be better as we are teaching it to be better. And so ultimately it gets to the point where you start to say to yourself, okay, well, how many grains of sand become a pile, right? In other words, how much of an AI article is it before it's an AI written article? And I actually asked a young person who is passionately like, every time I see AI writing, I hate it and I skeeve out and I don't read it, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, wait a minute. I said, but answer the question, which is, if you read an article and you loved it, you engaged with it, you thought it was great, you got great value out of it, and then after you got that value, you found out it was written by AI, would you care? And she said, no, I wouldn't. And I said, exactly. I said, there will come a time where you will engage with content that is either in part, in all, or in very little degree created by AI, and you won't know, therefore you won't care. If the content is good, the content is good. And that's just the way it's going to be. And so ultimately you have to understand that value, we've talked about this on the show before, value is created at the consumption transaction, not at the creation transaction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we determine what is good and what is not, and we won't ultimately care whether or not how it's generated. It's just if it's good or not. It's just right now we can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I pulled a pin on a big topic there. And I don't know whether we're going to answer it fully. I think you have, though, because I don't think anybody's going to care. But I really like this idea that you just said that I hadn't thought of, which is about the way that there's this symbiotic relationship between the machines and the humans teaching each other. Because I know for a fact that the English language I speak used to have a lot of Zs in it. But when spell checkers and stuff came in, there had to be a simple rule. So now American English is Zs or Zs, and UK English is S's, right? And that was introduced effectively by the machines, is my understanding of it. And I imagine, and if you think about the way that we go about doing marketing automation and all these things, we get taught by the machines just as much, right? So if the machine, it might be that wheels evolve to start using M dashes or something.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, you know what I mean? It's like, what you have now, right? Is you have, sort of a, I mean, notwithstanding Ann Handley's #justice for M dashes sort of thing, which I think is brilliant. And I think is exactly
absolutely.
right. Is you have writers that are out there now. For example, I do writing for clients. So many of my clients I do writing assignments for. And they are asking me to avoid the use of the M dashes because for them, it's a telltale sign and they don't want to be accused of having AI write it, even though it won't be an AI writing it. It'll be me. So they're deathly afraid of the act because that's the season we're in, right? Whereas we're deathly afraid to sound like AI, even when we're not.
Yeah.
And the idea of using an M dash is the general zeitgeist is that that's a telltale sign. When of course it's not. It's not a telltale sign. And so that's an interesting thing because what it's going to do is that it's going to immediately reduce the amount of M dashes that are getting created in the world. Thus, the AI is going to learn from that and stop using it as much. It can do that now. You can tell it not to use M dashes and it will stop. And so ultimately, that wave, it's like an ocean, right? That wave hits the shore and then it will fade out. And then another one will, it's not this, it's that sort of framing. That'll hit the shore and then fade out. Yeah. And then there will be something else that will be, the whole, here's an uncomfortable truth. That's another telltale sign, right? The uncomfortable truth is always there. And, there's so many, there's lists of these things that are out there that are, but all of those are just waves that hit the shore and will ultimately disappear.
And they're creating a surprising amount of anger as well. When I see, people making these grand statements about how LinkedIn is full of AI slop. No, it's just full of slop mostly, and some of it's human written as well. But
well, right, it's like that's the thing. It's like it's all slop. It's like it's all. There's no such thing as AI slop. It's just all slop. Like humans created it. Humans may not have expressed that idea, but humans created that. It's all, you are traffic. We are traffic. Right?
The thing I've found though is, I mean, I do avoid you. I don't know that I've ever actually used an M dash. I've used an N dash, which is the shorter version. And my punctuation isn't anything to be proud of, but I don't think I've not really thought about it. But now I've learned about M dashes and N dashes. And now I see a reason to use them. But of course, one mustn't. They're verboten unless people have listened to Anne Handley, and we need to keep it. But I think it's really interesting now, isn't it? But also, when we were so we had a little conversation about this back and forth on email about whether anybody whether it matters whether something is content AI generated. And you came up with like these 4 scenarios. I don't know if you recall our conversation, but 4 scenarios where it's okay or it isn't. And it's about the perception, isn't it? About what people believe they're reading.
That's right. You ostensibly have, it's all the different, sort of because what it reminds me of is all of the sort of errors that we make, human errors that we make. So you have your false positive, your false negative, your negative, and your positive, right? So if you think of it sort of like that, it's sort of, very quickly, you end up with sort of 4 category of errors that you can, that one can make. In other words, you can read a piece, think it's AI, but it's not. You can read a piece, believe that it's AI, and it is. You can read a piece, not believe that it's AI, and it is, and so on and so forth, right? And so each of those, you end up with a value at the end of that, how much you value that piece of content after consuming it. And so the sort of point of the framework is that we're in a season now, just as we were just talking, we're in a season where one of those categories, I can see that it's AI and therefore I devalue it, is the operating model. But we can actually see that category will become less and less and less and less over time, because this is the dumbest version of us. So even those that are trying to fake the world out will get better at it. And you see it every day, right? You go to your Facebook feed now, and there's that, every day you see a wall of text of somebody who's like, in a quiet room, there was, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, and it's just long ass, 500 word post. And you're like, okay, well, that's AI, right? That will start to, because the performance of those things will start to show. And therefore you'll start to, the machine will fix itself, right? So that's the lesson in it, is that ultimately it gets back to our original point that people won't care. And the reason people won't care is because they won't know.
Cool. Well, then, if people don't know anything about this
you're
topic,
really going to work this one out.
Where might they find the real, true Robert Rose?
If you want to learn more about my consulting and what we do for clients, I would head on over to seventhbear.com. That's we've just redesigned that to be much more of a, here's the stuff you can buy from us. And if you're interested in the thinking only and thinking, you can, of course, see Content Marketing Institute, where I write my column. And then, of course, my YouTube channel, where I put all those into videos every week.
Splendid. All right, mate. And when people spin the dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you?
LinkedIn is primarily my place of choice these days. Although I've stopped. I've just got tired of the politics on Threads. So I'm now a consumer on Threads and not so much a creator on Threads anymore.
Right. And most importantly for me, will you be in the bar next week?
Of course, yes.
I'll see you then, my friend.
Yep.
Cheers. Thank you, Robert. I referenced a BBC podcast there, Everything is Fake and Nobody Cares, which you can find on BBC Sounds and most podcast platforms. I highly recommend giving it a listen. It's very entertaining. So that's a wrap on episode 321 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. Thank you for putting a dime into your podcasty jukebox, selecting our track and jiving along with us. I've been your host, Ian Truscott. You can find links to our little band and the articles we discussed in the show notes, along with links to our blog, newsletter, and all of our previous episodes at rockstarcmo.com. Next week, Jeff is back. We're planning to talk about agentic B2B prospecting, referring to some new Forrester research on that topic, before I join Robert in the bar. In the meantime, I'll leave you with a quote from computer scientist Oren Etzioni. AI is a tool. The choice about how it gets deployed is ours.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Heather Eck hosts an amazing show called Your Radiant Spirit. Heather, tell listeners about the show.
What if the colors you're drawn to, the creative urges you ignore, and the quiet intuitive hits you brush off are actually trying to tell you something? Your Radiant Spirit is the podcast that helps you listen and live with greater clarity and purpose.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find and subscribe at heathereck.com/yourradiantspirit, on marketingpodcast.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.